Hi, welcome back to another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends, the super awesome podcast show where me, your artist friend Chris Dyer, talks to all his amazing creative friends. Today I'm in Willow Creek in the Humboldt County of California, and I'm teaching an art class at the Align and Shine Healing Retreat. And I got a chance to talk to Patty Davis, who's a super talented psychic medium and also an artist. And we had a really deep conversation about the nature of all reality, the energetics of all existence, and a lot of very interesting topics. So I hope you'll enjoy this one. Peace.
While the world is burning, got to make amends. Walk on the sunny side with a positive lens. Talks about passion between the women and the men. Chris Dyer and his creative friends. Darling, ooh, ooh,
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Patty. It's such a pleasure and honor to have you on my show. Please tell us a little bit of where are we?
Oh my gosh, we are in beautiful Willow Creek, California, at a retreat that my podcast partner Jude and I are putting on, and we're in the middle of the mountains, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's great. This is the Humboldt County.
Humboldt County, Northern California. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. Tell me a little bit about it. All I know about it is that there's lots of weed.
Humboldt County's full of weed, but it's beautiful. It's, I used to joke and say like it's where the redwoods meet the ocean, because we're right on the coast, but we have beautiful tall redwoods and forests and lots of hiking, and there's a lot of lagoons and rivers, and it's just beautiful here. Really pretty. Now we are in Northern California, so we do get a lot of rain and fog, but when the sun's out like today, yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, I love the trees. I love the mountains. It seems like there's still lots of trees, as much
yeah.
as there's also forest fires and clear cuts. And definitely the ocean's nice, but it's cold, huh?
It's cold. Yeah, the ocean's cold. Yeah, yeah, you have to wear a wetsuit to go into the ocean, but we have beautiful summers and falls, and yeah.
Awesome, you're lucky.
Yeah,
so tell me a
thanks.
little bit about the retreat.
So this actually is a retreat that Jude is putting on, but we are both psychic mediums, and then we have a psychic podcast, Spirit Speakers podcast, and we started doing a few retreats. This is the second one we did here, the second year, where some of our listeners can come and hang out with us, and we put together really amazing healers come in and heal, and yeah.
Like what's some healing modalities?
Well, at this one particular, we had a hypnotist that did a group hypnotism, and we have breath work happening tomorrow, and then I'm doing a spell casting course, and then we have some microdosing happening and someone teaching more about microdosing. Yeah, and then you're going to be doing some art here.
Yeah, and there's yoga in the morning, even though I don't get up that early.
Yeah.
And last night we had a cacao ceremony with some sound healing.
Yes, beautiful sound
Did
healing.
you like that?
Oh, I love Jude's sound healing. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, she's great.
She is great.
And did you enjoy the hypnotherapist today?
I did. I was a little leery of doing it in a group because I usually can't get hypnotized. I pull myself out. I'm a little bit of a control freak, and it gets in the way, but I had a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like she conducted it well, where she's like, okay, your conscious mind's going to be looking at this being like, what's going on here? What is this?
Yeah.
It's like, let it snoop around, but also let your subconscious go on the ride. So I think I allowed myself to go on the ride enough.
Okay. You enjoyed it.
To feel the vibrations.
Yeah. Nice.
Though my linear mind was like following instructions too, literally. So tell me a little bit about the Spirit Speakers podcast. How long have you been doing it? What's it about?
Yeah, this month is our 4th year anniversary. So Jude and I became friends about 10 years ago, and we would have these late night conversations on spirituality, like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what happened, and oh, this is crazy, and and then one time, it was either she or I don't remember who, one of us joked, we should totally do a podcast. And we're like, let's do it. And neither one of us had ever done anything like that. And she's great with tech stuff. So she got it all set up and got it all aligned. And we started doing it. And we weren't really expecting to have an audience. You know, we thought maybe our friends would listen. But it started spreading really quick. And we've had, I think it's like 500,000 downloads totally, which blows our mind. But it's fun. And you know, we've just built a full community of people. Yeah,
I love it.
Great.
I'm a big fan of your podcast. I pass it on to a lot of people, especially particular episodes like you had that past life, not past life,
the near-death experience.
Near-death experience.
I think it's after-death experience is what. Yeah, that was intense and mind-blowing and amazing, wasn't it?
That was a beautiful one, and I had a friend who had a couple people die in their lives. Like, listen to this, and it'll make you a little bit more optimistic about it. But it also just lays out the whole philosophy of living a good life.
Yeah.
And it's all things that I was either agreeing with or already doing. So it's like a lot of great affirmations. But in general, your podcast, you guys kill it. Plus, it seems like you're like the, I don't want to call you old, but the more mature
Thanks,
mom kind of character compared to Judea, who's just kind of a little bit more like wild and exploring her psychic abilities in a different way than you. So you guys counterbalance each other well.
Thank you. Yeah, we come from totally different spaces too. You know, I tend to be a little more practical and super grounded, and Jude is pretty galactic and, you know, and can be out there. So we tend to balance each other out. And I'm learning to be a little more open from her. She's learning to be a little more grounded from me. But the podcast is all about, you know, topics from two different vantage points, because there are people that fully resonate with her. You know, they have similar experiences to her, and what she speaks really, you know, talks to them. And then there are others that are a little more like me. So yeah, it's interesting because you can, you can find something that fits you, but you also, you know, are opened up to things you may not have ever experienced or even considered or thought about. And we do have some episodes that scare people. You know, every once in a while I get a message like, wow, that was scary, only, you know, had to get off in 5 minutes. But most of them are pretty easy to listen to and follow. But yeah.
I love it. I feel the world's going to be moving more into a more spiritual reality. So what would you say is the difference between you and Judea?
All right, I want to word this well so I don't offend her. But Judea has the ability to go into the dark. You know, she's like a demon slayer. You know, she can totally go and do all that stuff. And she's learned to really protect herself and gotten better at not being overwhelmed by that through her journey, where I am more on the light end of everything. You know, we're kind of on a spectrum, you know, and I think it's important to have an awareness of all of it. But I tend to work more in the light, you know, in the higher frequencies. I just don't invite any demons in or anything dark. And if it comes in, I'm like, oh, hell no, and push it away. Where she's like, wait, what are you doing? What are you about? Or I call Jude and say, Jude, what the hell? Yeah, yeah, totally.
Nice. Well, in this whole thing of having extrasensory powers or psychic abilities, it seems like it's all about healing, correct? Or it's like you can see more. She's like, well, what am I going to do with these powers other than bring healing to people? What's the importance of healing, especially at this day and age in humanity's course?
Yeah. Well, first, let me address the healing thing. I think a lot of times it just helps us navigate our life better. If we can read people better, we're going to be better partners. We're going to communicate better. We're going to be more helpful. You know, if we have a better idea of what surrounds us and what is in our environment, our world, we're going to navigate this life a little bit. So I think a lot of times people feel that when they step into their psychic abilities and their psychic powers, which a lot of people are doing right now, because the human condition is like, well, what do we do with that? Where do we put that? How do I manifest a career or finances from that? And sometimes just being who you are and bringing this light in the world is healing on its own. Like, you don't have to set an intention to heal or have a job or a career or call yourself or label anything. Like, sometimes walking down the street and just, you know, smiling at somebody can really change somebody's whole entire day. So that's healing to yourself because you are recognizing your own gifts and your own power, and it's very empowering. And it is healing to others, but I think sometimes people get caught up in that whole linear third dimensional thing, like, oh, I got to place this somewhere. Where does this belong? You know, if that's a title or you're going to get educated in something. So
in the definition of having powers or being a psychic, it seems like every psychic has a different ability, you know. Obviously, you and Jude got different abilities. I consider you both very high quality.
Thank you.
Because I've met a lot and I know a lot of people with sensibilities. What's your definition of being a psychic? Or what's your vibe?
Okay, what's my vibe? So our gifts can come in many different ways. You know, you can be clairaudient, where you hear things, you can see things, get things in a direct knowing. You know, you can be a super empathic person, where you're not necessarily empowered in using it, but you're affected a lot by your psychic abilities. So for me personally, I am extremely empathic and sensitive, and I just have an awareness of what goes beyond our conversation. You know, like I can be picking up little bits and pieces about you, and I can be picking up on the energy of that tree behind you, and I can be affected by the person walking down the street. And so mine started out with that way, being affected and having an awareness. And then the more I started working with it, then I started using it intentionally. And now I'm a psychic medium, and people come to me with questions, and I help them with their life's process or connecting with somebody on the other side that's passed. So, you know, it's kind of evolved in more of an intentional use rather than just who I am, you know, and how it comes. And it got to a point where I was so sensitive that I manifested a teacher, because, you know, I became a mom, and one of my kids, like, you know, my daughter was going on a field trip on a boat, and I started panicking and worrying about her. So in my mind, being a psychic person, I was like, okay, is this just a mom freaking out about her kid being safe, or is this a premonition and something I need to pay attention to?
Right.
So I needed to find a way to differentiate between what was common fears and what was an omen or a prediction or something I should pay attention to, and how to be in a crowd without having an anxiety attack and being overwhelmed by all the people in the room. So I needed to learn how to protect myself, and, you know, how to control my environment. And if I have a ghost come in, do I want to hang out with that ghost, or do I not want to hang out with that ghost? And know that I have the power to make that decision. Yeah.
So, say right now, do you see the world in the same way I see it? I think I'm normal. Maybe I'm not, but I can only see things from my point of view. Do you see me and see my aura, or maybe my guide standing right next to me, or you'd have to press a couple buttons in order to see that lens?
So because I do this for a living and I have many, many clients and I'm too busy, I have had to learn not to do that too much. Like, I want to be able to sit and have a conversation with you without seeing your dead grandfather, and without picking up on your pain in your knee and all that stuff, because while that information is great.
I do have a pain in my knee.
Okay. Is it that knee?
No, this
Oh,
one
wrong
here.
knee. Okay. But anyway, so, you know, that information is great, but we also want to be able to have a normal life. Like, if we had the ability to see everything that was around us, all the spirits going through, and all the ancient, indigenous ghosts that are here in this area, it might be a little overwhelming and hard to live a normal life.
Too much information.
Well, and the thing is, you know, we're here on this earth, but we're trying to open up spiritually. You know, the earth is raising in vibration. People are becoming more and more aware and more spiritual. But we were spiritual and souls and chose to come in and have this experience. So we're learning to balance the both. So the more we expand spiritually, the more we'll have a better understanding of why we're here and what this purpose is about and what we're trying to accomplish here, rather than picking one or the other, you know, kind of thing. So I think you can be way out of your body and too spiritual, and then it's like, why the hell did you even come here? You know, why didn't you stay out there, you know, up with the stars?
Right.
So it's all about balance. But if I wanted to, I could easily just tap in and start reading you and seeing things. And I joke with my friends that if I was, you know, on camera, I would look like such a weirdo, because I'll just be going through my day and be like, wait, what was that? Like, I'll just feel a time shift, or I'll be like, okay, I just left and came through. There was a time warp there, you know, and sometimes I have lunch with my friends and I'll be like, oh, your grandma's with you. Or they'll be like, what are you doing? Because I'll be kind of like looking behind them, you know, and trying not to say anything. And they'll be like, what? You know?
Yeah. Well, I'm tempted of being like, what do you see right now? But I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, because I imagine that's like annoying. Era is probably like asking you to see these things that we don't see. But that's my next question. So you're out of the closet about being a psychic. You tell people, I'm a psychic. And the world, which is not used to observing spirit, honestly, looks at a psychic like, what? You can see spirit and spiritual things? Oh, I don't believe in that, and you got to prove yourself to me now, and all this stuff. It's almost like defensive towards you, and they might even like make fun of you. And so, how does it feel to have that energy
Yeah.
thrown at you?
Well, I was raised, my father was extremely psychic, really psychic. And he would do things like, he predicted his brother's death. And he predicted how his brother was going to die. And we would have, we were lower middle class, and we would have a vacation planned. And then there were 2 vacations where at the last minute he said, oh, we can't go. And we all trusted him. And he would say, oh, pick up the phone at your grandma, and the phone would ring and it would be our grandma, that type of thing all the time. So we grew up with that being normal. We didn't think that was weird, and we knew he had these special gifts. And so, I have 2 brothers. As we grew up, we started recognizing our own gifts and working on that. But you have to know your audience, and I was just talking to somebody about this. There are times when being vulnerable and sharing something about yourself is going to be detrimental to your well-being. If I have somebody that's a critic, why would I even bother getting in that conversation with them? Like, that's not good for my energy field, but then there are times when we hold back and we should speak up. So it's hard to figure that out. When pretty early on, I didn't call myself a psychic for a long time. I had to build up some confidence around that. But my husband, we went to a party, a work party for him, and we were sitting at a table, and somebody looked over and said, so Pat, I don't even know these people. Patty, what do you do for a living? And we own a business together, and that I was going to say, we own a business together. And he yells out, oh, she talks to dead people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because it was not the right room for that, and it was early on in my process.
Read the audience.
And I just kind of like kicked him under the table. And in that particular instance, it was so uncomfortable that no one asked any questions, and it kind of faded out. But I don't go around announcing that to people unless I feel it's necessary, or unless Spirit's like, you need to go talk to them. And I'm like, no, go talk to them. No, go talk to them. Okay.
Right.
Kind of thing. I'm not, and there are people, that you see, the Long Island Medium, if anybody's ever watched that show. She'll be at a grocery store and she'll walk over and say, your great grandma's with you, to somebody that's, like in the produce aisle.
Yeah.
And it makes a great television show.
Yeah.
But that's such a personal and intimate thing that I feel like people need to be ready for that.
Yeah.
They have to be, they might end up be in the middle of a grief process where that's going to be difficult for them to hear, or it may be really wonderful for them to hear. Yeah. And so that's for them to choose. They come to see me when they're ready.
Yeah.
However,
it's intimate.
Yeah. I have this thing that's happening a lot. I was just talking to somebody about this, where I have most of my clientele is women. And I'll have women that are growing spiritually and feel like their husbands are lacking, or they need to bring them up. So they'll get them a reading with me. They don't really want to come, most of them. And those are really hard because they're sitting there and it's almost like I'm trying to convince them. So, and I'm a human, I have an ego. So then I start sweating, and like, oh my gosh, and getting nervous, and it's this big thing. And so, when somebody comes to you that's a critic, 90% of the time by the end, we're laughing and they're going, no way, so tell me about this. And they're excited. But there are those that come in so shut off that just refuse to be proven otherwise, that you just don't get anywhere with it.
Do you feel you got to prove yourself, or you don't care because you know your truth?
I really want to do a good job. I want people to benefit from this and feel better, and I want it to be a positive experience. So I put a lot of pressure on myself, and so I really want to, and I'm learning to let go of things that don't go well and not take them personally, and not apologize, because this isn't a science. This is an art.
Right. Like nobody's good at everything in perfection.
And there's good days and bad days. I might be reading you, and it might have a lot to do with where you are. It might have a lot to do with where I am that day. So it fluctuates, and it depends on what's happening with the energy and the frequency around us. So yeah.
So did your dad train you, or you said somebody trained you?
My dad didn't train me. My dad was raised Southern Baptist, and he feared God, and he wasn't very open with it. He wasn't open with it anywhere else other than in our family. And he didn't, it's kind of one of those things. He's been dead quite a while. And now it's like, oh, I just wish I could put him on the spot and be, but when did this happen and how did this happen? Because it was just part of our life, so we didn't ask questions, until he was gone and we were older. And then I really wanted to know the details. So I can connect with him. He's dead, and I can connect with him but he's not I don't have a really clear channel with him as far as asking questions, but I ask questions of other people. Like I have a friend whose dad died who is just amazing. He sits and tells me, he shows me grid work and tells me what it's like to cross over. And so it doesn't necessarily matter if you knew them or if they were in your family or if you were close to them. This is who you have the direct channel with.
Are you hurt your own father doesn't want to communicate with you so clearly on the other side?
It's not that he doesn't want to communicate with me, and I'm not hurt. It's just that we don't have that connection. So he might just be in a totally different space.
Yeah.
You know, because we're not all in the same space. It's not like we die and we're like, oh, who can we help?
Yeah.
You know, everybody has, our process continues in different ways after we've passed. So he'll come through, but when he comes through, he's super excited and overly energetic, and it's a little overwhelming. So before we even get to the meat of things, I'm usually like, dude, you know, sit down or I'm out, you know, because he's like, it's just a lot of energy. But, you know, when he was dying, you know, I said, so, you know, we got to chat. When you die, you got to connect with me and let me know how it is. And he's like, yeah, definitely. And I didn't hear a word from him for 2 years, like not a dream. And I'm somebody that's very mediumistic. You know, my grandmother sits on the end of my bed, you know, every week and chats with me.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
So it kind of fucked with my sense of mortality. And I'm like, am I just like, is this all bullshit? And because if anybody could talk to me, it would be my dad and all that stuff. But I was patient. And when he finally started coming through and I had gone further in my education, then I'm like, you know, this isn't all about me, you know, or even about our relationship. There's so many factors there. Yeah.
So then later you got trained by somebody else?
I was really manifesting a teacher because this is about the time when my gifts were coming in really strong, and I was like, I need to understand this better. I need to be able to handle this.
What age is this?
This was about 29, 30 years old. You know, I had a couple kids, and it was like closer to 40, actually, closer to 40. And I was sitting in the coffee shop, and there were two women, and they were talking about their psychic classes. I'm like, wait, what? What is the psychic class? And so they told me about it, and it was a local woman, and I started working with her in a classroom setting, and I worked with her for 14 years.
Wow. And
she had beginner and intermediate and advanced classes, and then, you know, people that had, you know, a gift or a talent. She moved us into what was called a channeling circle, and we would channel, and we would read each other, and we would, you know, do a lot of the deep stuff, astral traveling, all that type of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was great. And so in addition to the education, it was meeting with a like-minded community and practicing with each other and having somebody to call and talk to these things about. Yeah.
Would you say that you've helped Judea a little bit in her training?
Yeah, well, I have so much respect for Jude, and she, you know, is a natural talent. But when I first met her, she was, and this is my words, not hers, a little overwhelmed by some of the dark stuff that had gotten on top of her. And we started working, and I started giving her tools, you know, and I think one of the things I'm like, just take a vacation from it. Because she was overwhelmed by some of the dark energies, but that was who she was. You know, that was her identity, and that's what she had been doing her whole life. So when I'm like, well, let's clear them out, she's like, like she wanted to, but she didn't want to. And I'm like, let's do this. Let's take a week's vacation. You can always come back. You can always open that door again. And so we met in a week, and she's like, Patty, my life has changed. You know, and she
learned to shut it out.
She learned to control it.
Wow.
And she learned, and now what's so good is she knows her limits. She knows when she can help somebody with a dark energy or shift something, and then she knows when something's coming at her and she needs to just put protection up. So I helped her a lot, and she's helped me a lot, and we've learned so much from each other. But yeah, she took a class with me, and we met quite a bit and did some readings and worked on things. And I think I introduced her to the light, and she introduced me to the dark.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I feel like Spirit Speakers is kind of like Psychic Class, that podcast, where each episode's a different topic to learn and grow.
It is. You know, we describe and explain what this term means, because there's things out there that people don't, like somebody might be, what the heck is astral traveling? You know, so we'll explain what is astral traveling. And then we'll be like, this is how you do it. This is when you shouldn't do it. This is my experience with it. And Jude will say, well, this is my experience with it. And usually we're very different, but we tend to either use different terminology most of the time or just be off a little bit. Every once in a while, we just don't agree with each other. Yeah, which is fine.
Which is fine.
Which is very cool, yeah.
Right, no, it's more interesting. So would you say like uh, being a psychic or having this wider lens of what's behind the physical plane, does it help you live a better life as a human? Like, does it give you instant wisdom, for example, knowing that karma is an exact law or the law of attraction is something that's for real? You're probably a lot more confident because you can see it working almost mathematically. Does it help you, or do you still act like a human?
I'm still a human, but it makes a huge difference. I really try not to get into gossiping at all. If like my brother and I were really sarcastic, and we would text each other little like making fun of somebody in the family, and it would for a laugh. And I would find myself going to do that, send him something that's hilarious that he's gonna. But I'm like, do I want to put that energy out there? Because I recognize that every thought that I have about you, that's energy that's going at you, and I don't have to agree with you, but if I'm not, being accepting and loving, that's bad energy that I'm holding, and that's bad energy that's going to you, and I don't want to be part in that. So it's made me a much better person, and then recognizing my own sensitivity and my own empathy really helped me be more compassionate about others that are sensitive. And you never know what somebody's going through, or how they perceive information, or how sensitive they are. So if you just are kind and compassionate and responsible for your own energy field and for what you're putting out there, it changes if everybody thought twice before they said something funny at someone else's expense, like that could change the world.
But you can see really clearly because you see everything as energetics, correct?
Yeah.
So what happens when you say, I bad talk my brother, but he doesn't hear it? How does that affect him negatively?
We have connections, especially with our loved ones. We have, they've shown like two people in love. They actually, through NASA, they have photographs that they can through a camera catch the energy that flows from heart to heart. And then we have this auric space. And this is why if somebody comes into your space, you're like, oh, someone snuck up on me, or if someone's too close, because your energy is exchanging. Well, when we're speaking out loud, we're sending out, sound waves, and sound waves travel. So these sound waves are traveling in, throughout the ethers, and they can connect with other people. And even our thoughts are vibrational waves. And they're starting to get to a place with science where they can actually photograph some of that. So this is why, you might have times where you're just thinking of somebody a lot, like, I don't know why I'm thinking about them. They've been on my mind. And then they call you, And so this could be that you were thinking about them, and so that energy was going to them, and they're like, I'm going to call Chris. Or it could be that they had been thinking about you. Maybe there's something, they heard a song on the radio that reminded you of them. And so you're picking up on that energy and thinking about them. So it definitely travels that, if you think like you're at a party, and maybe this is just me. We'll see if you get this too. Like, I will know that they're talking about me, even though I can't hear them, and I'm not paranoid, but their energy about me is focusing towards me.
Yeah.
That energy is coming my direction. And so I know they're talking about me, or there's something going on there, or two people are talking over there, and I could be like, oh, they're in an argument, because the energy starts to change. You can just kind of sense that energy. Yeah.
I just think I'm paranoid when I feel that. And I am.
Well, sometimes we are paranoid.
Yeah.
Too, yeah. So are you familiar with dowsing rods?
Yes.
Okay. So I have some dowsing rods that are only a foot long. And dowsing rods, for the audience here, they use them a lot for water. They're metal rods. You hold on to them. You can't control what they're doing. They're in kind of like a sheath, I guess you would call it. And as you come over water, they will cross, and that's how they tell when to dig a well and everything. Well, I can hold on. I've gotten really good at this, but I can hold on to those, and I can think of some loving, amazing thought, and they will open wide because my energy field is expanding. And if I think of something negative, they will cross. And if I think of the left side of the room or the right side of the room, they go that way. Left side, they go that way. Because that's proving to you how energy follows. Your thoughts cause an energy stream, and it goes whichever way you're directing it. So when you're thinking of somebody, you could be sending them good vibes, and they're just feeling good, or you could be sending them shitty vibes, and they might feel depressed and bad, So yeah, and it's hard to wrap our head around that, but that happens a lot. And a lot of times, if somebody like cuts a cord, let's say you and your brother, you're corded energetically because you grew up together, you have this exchange of energy. So you might just be like, I'm mad at him, I'm done, I need some space from him. This isn't a healthy connection. So you sever that connection. He'll call you on the phone and be like, are you mad at me for something? Like, people sense that. They sense that separation or that clearing. Yeah, it's fascinating.
So I got like, as you're speaking, like all these questions start popping up on my brain.
Yeah, kind of went off there, sorry.
No, it's great. So you're talking about this dowsing rod that's used to find water, and you can see it also going along with your energy. So what about the pendulum? The pendulum was something where I'm like, an ex-girlfriend of mine is like, oh, make a question and tell it yes in a circle, no in a, in a up, like forward motion. And I would use that to ask, like, should I go on that trip? Should I, date this person, blah, blah, blah.
And did it work for you?
It did, but then I started questioning, like, is it saying yes because I wanted to say yes? But it would also expose to me what I wanted, really.
Yeah. There are people that swear by pendulums and use them, religiously, and they work really well for them. They don't work for me. I have kind of this ability to do things with my mind, like I can hold the rod, and again, I have no control, and I can be like, let's touch. You go to the left, you go to the right, and I'm doing that with my mind. So for me, if I'm wanting the pendulum to say yeah, that pendulum is going to tell me yes.
Yeah, you're controlling it, yeah.
And if I'm like, tell me no, I want it to say yes, but no, it's probably no, it's going to say no. I can control it.
Right.
Those type of things don't work for me because I have a really strong mind-body connection.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But other people swear by them.
So then I wanted to ask, if one person cuts the cords, you feel it, and you're like, oh, what's happening? What happens when, like, thousands of people hate you on the internet all the time? For example, you're a public person and people get mad at you for any reason, and they're all like, fuck you, like both verbally but also in their minds. Is that like, what does the person receiving that energy feel like?
Terrible.
So is that like something unhealthy, or it could affect physicals? Or?
So this is the work as well, especially being a public person. Boundaries. It's kind of like, okay, all this negative energy is coming to me. I can either absorb that and feel physically ill, and it can manifest in me vomiting tomorrow because it's all going into my sacral chakra. I can get sick. It lowers my vibration. Or if you have boundaries, you can say, okay, do I own any of this? Is this anything that I need to know about myself? And if not, I'm going to let that go. I'm going to protect myself, raise my vibration up, and that protection is going to keep it from affecting you negatively.
How can you protect yourself? What's a technique for protection? Because sometimes I'm like, as a public person, and Carlos Castañeda recommended this, don't let people see pictures of you. Don't expose yourself so publicly, because then a bunch of energy could go at you. But if you can learn to protect yourself, then you're safe, right?
I think it makes you more vulnerable, but this is a choice that you make. Some of us are meant to help or be in, help hundreds of people, or, through your art. Art is so healing and affects everybody so profoundly. If that's your calling, you have to accept that and walk into it, but protecting yourself. So there are many different ways of protecting, again, depending on how you perceive energy. Somebody visual, I'm a very visual person, so I will like put, a web of light or a gelatinous egg around me or something like that. Somebody that's very more sensory might, like work with frequencies or the feeling in their skin, or somebody might be like, I'm bringing in a really high frequency light and wrapping myself in that. So it's kind of, it's such a generalized question because there's so many ways to do it, but you can go into the podcast because we have one on protection.
Right.
But the basics are that we have an auric field, our energy field, and it radiates out, and they've taken photographs of that. They used to say that it radiated out about 3 feet. Now they're thinking it radiates out more like 10. And that is when we're feeling good. When you're sick or you're feeling self-confident or you're getting a bunch of bad publicity for something, we tend to bring our aura in. And this is why when we're sick, we just want to roll up in the fetal position and, get into bed and cover ourselves, when really what we should be doing is opening our energy field, raising our vibration so we can connect to healing energy. So we have the ability to work with our auric field, and that's our protection layer. Some people's aura is like 2 inches from their head, but beautiful. Some people's is kind of dim, and I'm like, we need to turn up your inner dimmer switch. That's our protection. So for me, because I'm an extremely sensitive person, when I was younger, being in crowds, being around people that didn't control their energy field, I could have full-on anxiety attacks because it would just overwhelm me. So what I did is I would turn up my my inner dimmer switch, let my aura be nice and bright and in a high frequency, and I would make it a little more dense. So like if some energy comes in here, it's almost like a ripple comes through and I'm like, oh, hell no, not mine. Or I might be like, oh, that's interesting, what is that? You know, so it helped me have some control. Or you can imagine, you know, if you have somebody that you have difficult energy with, you see their name on your phone before you pick it up, you take a few deep breaths, you imagine there's a beautiful piece of gilded framed bulletproof glass between you, you know, so you can see them and hear them and talk to them, but you're not catching up on all of those vibes that they might be sending out to you that are, you know, whether they're mad at you or they're just a difficult person or somebody that you don't vibrationally match with.
Right. So we can learn how to listen a little bit better. Perhaps we're not all super powerful psychics, but we can take that 1 second and feel out to the best of our abilities. Oh, do I want to talk to this person? Oh, does that person feel good? Hopefully we're not judging a book by its cover.
Right.
But then again, we're trying our best in the amount of information we receive.
Yeah, but you might just be like, hey, I just recognize that every time I hang out with that guy, I feel depressed and crappy that night, or I don't sleep well. Or, hey, every time I run into them, I just feel this jolt of really good energy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh, I recognize that this person's good for me. I recognize that this energy is not good for me. Or if it's your brother or your sister and you have to have a relationship with them, then you learn how to protect yourself so that you're not taking on that energy.
Right. Well, I don't think you got to be a psychic to do
absolutely not.
the simple, logical thing of hanging out with the people you resonate with and not hanging out with those who just are a bad time.
Yeah. So the thing about the word psychic there.
Okay.
Most people have experiences, extrasensory or telepathic experiences, but they're like, oh, that was probably my imagination. Oh, I don't know if that really happened. Oh, I think I made that up. It's when you start pulling those things and holding on to them and trusting them and asking about them that your abilities start to really grow.
Right.
I do like a coaching, and I had one young woman, she's like, I just am not psychic at all, no. And I'm like, okay, every day, at the end of the day, you have to write me or text me and let me know anything that happened that was unusual or psychic. And by the end of it, she's like, oh my gosh, this stuff's happening all the time.
Right.
So it wasn't that she wasn't psychic, it's that she wasn't paying attention to it.
Right.
Or taking ownership of it.
That's why I was saying, like, I'm trying to learn how to listen, and that's being thanks to having so many conversations with Julia, because she's just like, just try to listen to your guides or what's happening. And now I'm trying, and I'm starting to gain confidence in myself. But I guess like we all have this ability to some degree at different levels, but we're just not trained to perceive.
Exactly. And there are people that like, I just, I don't see anything. And I'm like, maybe that's not your gift. Maybe you get things more in a sensory.
Right.
So they start paying attention to that. They're like, oh yeah, when I'm around this person, I get goosebumps, or I start to get a hot flash. And then they can recognize, oh, when I get goosebumps, this is what it means. Or when I start to get a hot flash, it's a warning that I'm stepping into an unsafe situation, or something like that. So I think, and people like, can you teach people to be psychic? I don't think you're teaching people to be psychic. I think you're teaching people to recognize their own way that they perceive information, their own gifts, and trust it and ask about it. Because if you were having a really hard day, you could just have a hard day and feel like crap, or you could be like, okay, take a few deep breaths. Can you tell me what's going on? Ask your guides, can you just bring me a message? And if you're a direct knowing person, you're like, I just feel like I need to get outside. And you go sit outside and you feel way better. Or I just feel like I'm getting sick, and that's all it is. Like you can, or maybe you'll see a vision, or you'll hear something. So we just don't ask. We stay in our own little bubble where if we open up and ask, we'll start to recognize, oh, I actually can hear things when I ask. But then a lot of people are like, oh, that was probably my imagination. And a lot of people have amazing, profound things happen, and then are like, oh, I probably made that up. And I'm like, no, how could you make that up?
I wish they taught us this as kids in school, because that's the best time to harness that perception that comes from a young person.
Yeah.
And it would give us so much more, I don't know, just more power to cruise this challenging physical environment.
Yeah. So do you mind if I plug my book right here?
Yes, please.
So I had so many parents coming to me wanting ways to help their empathic child or their very sensitive child. There are a lot of children that are being born right now that are extremely psychic and sensitive and empathic. And so I actually wrote a book for children, a children's book. And it's just a sweet little story. And, woven within the story are kind of like, sometimes I feel, when I'm in a crowd, it feels like it's too much. And so I will step outside and take 3 deep breaths and stand like I'm a big giant tree, and I feel better. Or I will put a gelatinous egg of light around me. So I wanted it to be woven in like it's a normal thing, like it's a normal conversation, not like this is a book on things are too much. So it's really sweet, and it's called It's Too Much, and it's by me, Patty Wing Davis, and you can get it through my website, pdavispsychic.com, or through Amazon. On Amazon, I make 60 cents off the book. So if you can buy it from me, I make a few bucks at least.
Yeah.
But and it just won an award, a book award, which is really cool.
Nice.
So I have teachers that are reading it to their classes and having discussions on this.
That's great.
And then one of my clients said that she sat down with their 3 teenagers and they read it together, and that they had a conversation with teenagers like, oh my gosh, that's totally me. I'm going to try this. So
Right.
it helps parents offer tools to their kids. It helps kids kind of tap into these ideas on just how to protect yourself, like we were talking about, so you don't get overwhelmed.
Nice. It's a
which is great.
gateway book.
Yeah.
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 Good
It's
job.
really important. Thank you.
It's so important. I feel I would have had a better chance as a kid if I would have had people being like, hey, you're special and you got special ability. Like, I felt like there was something different about me, but in Peru, it's just like, you're weird and you should feel bad about yourself for being weird. And it's taken me decades of like taking off this heavy armor to just be like, hey, I'm weird and I love myself.
Yeah, totally.
Here I
totally.
am to shine
Embrace
for everybody.
weird. Yeah. Well, even though I grew up in a household where a lot of that was kind of norm, there were limits on it. So I didn't learn that stuff because we didn't talk about it in those terms. My dad never sat down and said, you need to protect yourself. I don't think he knew how to protect himself, because he told me when he was young, he got things really strongly that he couldn't handle, so he shut it all off. So his gifts were more like kind of fun, tricky things, like who's calling, what's going to happen, what the score of the baseball game's going to be.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, there'd be something pretty serious thrown in there that we all respected. But yeah, even growing up in a household where that was kind of the norm, I didn't get what I needed.
It was a matter of fact kind of thing. I bet he was good at gambling, huh?
He wasn't a gambler. He didn't. Yeah, he was very, very sensitive. So he didn't really. He was a little bit of a recluse, and a little bit of a loner, and kind of because he would get overwhelmed being out in front of people.
I wonder how many of us who are recluses and loners and eventually alcoholics are psychics that could have flowered into a beautiful expression of soul into matter if only harnessed correctly by a culture that even appreciated our existence.
Right. Or if you had somebody in the community that could say, it's okay, here are some suggestions, this might kind of help. For instance, I've gotten to know myself where I know that, I need a lot of quiet time and alone time. And it's not that I'm, a bitch and don't want to be around people. It's that I require that because I get overwhelmed a lot. I have 3 very sensitive children. We never did 2 play dates in one weekend, ever. Because if they went to a party on Saturday and a party on Sunday, they would come home little assholes, and I knew that they were getting overwhelmed. So we would spread it out, because when you're in a crowd or you're being overstimulated, you need that time to kind of recover. If I go to a party, even if I'm having a great time and I'm not even drinking alcohol, I'll have a hangover. I call it a social hangover, where I'll feel kind of crappy for a couple days. It's because I was interacting energetically so much with people and sponging so much of it up that it takes those days to get back to myself, and like, oh, this is me, and now I feel back to normal, and I'm clearing out what doesn't belong to me or anything that's not serving my higher good. So it's great to have a community, because if we start to recognize that stuff within ourselves, we respect ourselves more and we take better care of ourselves, and that's what's healing for us.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think these are great lessons for everyone. And all the things that I'm asking you are things that are already on your podcast. And I'm just trying to get just a little nuggets, and people can go and look at Spirit Speakers on Spotify and etc. to expand on every topic. So there's a whole encyclopedia of knowledge that is not widely shared in our society for some reason. So I'm always very grateful for the service that you and Julia do.
Thanks.
So let me get to a big question. So you observe the world as energy and energetics and spirit experiencing a physical plane. What is this reality? And I guess it's tied in with what is God? That's two extremes of the same question, you know?
Okay.
Can you explain
Can you
what,
define God?
I guess the source consciousness that is all and created all and is us, but
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, because there's a lot of different, versions of God.
Right.
And what that is.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, not
All right.
the beard guy from Christianity.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And no specific one.
Okay. So I got hung on the God word. What was the question before the beginning of the
So
question?
what is this reality we're in right now? So we're in the physical plane, or that's what we call it. And then there's God that's just like the consciousness that it's eternal, infinite bliss, according to my ayahuasca investigations.
Okay. Okay. So first of all, I can't remember the author's name. Shoot. I studied Buddhism a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I read a book called Buddhism Without Beliefs. And it was the first time that I'd read anything geared religiously where it's like, it's okay to not know. Like, there are people that are like, no, I know that to be true. Religious people. And kind of for me, I'm kind of like, I don't have to know it all. Like, I don't have to spend all of my energy trying to have, because that's so human, that we need to know exactly how it works. How do we get there? How much is it going to cost? How much time is it going to take? What am I going to get from it? So I think it's okay to not know.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, I have a problem with authoritarian figures. So even the word creator kind of makes me a little prickly. I had some things happen when I was a kid around Christianity. I was in Sunday school. My dad was in church, and they were talking about how we had to save people that grew up as Buddhists or blah 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 are going to go to hell. And I raised my hand and I said, but if their parents were Buddhist, there's a chance they're going to grow up to be Buddhist. It really matters what is in their heart and how. And they kicked me out of school and asked me not to come back. So. They went and got my dad out of church, actually. So the term God kind of makes me feel prickly.
Right.
And even creator, because I feel that we all are God, so we are all creators, that we are all part of the mass,
Uh-huh.
So it's like this giant bowl of beautiful soul soup, and we decide to drip off the edge and go have a different experience.
Yeah.
Like we're all in the same soup. We're all the creator. We're all that bit. So even though I don't know it all, and I ask dead people tons of questions and they're great, but our soul, being in a space of limitless possibility, decided to come into a reality that was limited to see how we can move beyond that and how we can expand. And so I feel like, maybe our souls got a little bored. And they're like, well, let's try it this way. Let's see how far. It's almost like, let's try this video game and see how far we can get. It's almost like, let's try this and see what it's like. And I think that we are taking a limited, space, and we're learning to expand within that space. And I think that's what's happening right now, is that there are a lot of people that have already served all their karma, that are volunteers, that are here just to assist, just to help move and expand the world and take us into a higher dimensional space. So I feel like a lot of it has been a little bit of an experiment,
Mm-hmm.
And I think there have been times through history where we've gotten really close and didn't quite make it, or we've had visitations from ETs that have helped us, discover something and move up, and then we don't handle it right, or we don't do it for the right reasons, and we slip back. So I feel like it's a little bit of an experiment and an experience, and I think that we take it way too seriously, myself included. But I think the fact that we don't have that knowledge, because if we knew all the answers, we wouldn't be doing this.
Right.
And so if we're here trying to move beyond what is possible, but we already know exactly how it works, then we're not, so that's that kind of seeking exactly how it is, I think sometimes is not good.
Well, at the end of the day,
you get in a loop.
At the end of the day, these are just beliefs.
Totally.
And I appreciate hearing the personal beliefs of different people, especially when they got different perspectives, as to bounce off my own beliefs. Like I also believe God's just playing a video game through us, in us, to see if he can get back to itself.
Oh, interesting.
And so do you believe there's a purpose to your individual life and a purpose to humanity?
I believe that I chose this experience and that I came in with my gifts and my abilities, and that I am choosing what I want to do with that. I'm choosing my purpose. People a lot of times say, what's my purpose? I'm like, what do you want your purpose to be? It's free choice. We are artists. This is our creative plan. So it's not that there's a plan and we're trying to find it or open the right envelope that tells us this is what you're supposed to do. It's that we want to be creative with our personality and our beliefs and our gifts, and kind of do our own thing and figure that out. And I believe that a lot of people, and I think that's why not to sound egotistic, but I think I'm here to try to help, and I really want to help the earth move into a healed state and to a higher consciousness. So I feel like that is my purpose, and it is something I've chosen to do. And just seeing, working with one person and seeing them have an aha moment, that is like, it's life-changing, Yeah.
That's a beautiful purpose to have.
Yeah.
I love, I don't know if I'm a healer myself. I think I'm more of a communicator, and hopefully there's healing in communication, or
100%.
helping people get to their personal communication. But yeah, we need more healing in this planet. There's too much suffering. I'm sick and tired of suffering. I acknowledge suffering is part of the video game and the reality that God wants to experience through us, but there's just too much. And
It's love.
yeah.
None of this stuff would happen if we all came from a place of love. It would all change. Like if love was the priority and the purpose, and I truly believe like that's the main thing we're trying to get back to, is that love. Then it would all be totally different.
Right.
Love for our environment, our family, love for one another.
Yeah. And God is love, so it's the same thing in different words, going back to source,
Totally.
going back to God, whatever you want to consider it. So do you believe in things like hell?
So hell to me is a Christian thing, it's a biblical thing. So no, I don't believe in hell. I have seen dead people that are in a state that some people may label as hell. So it may be that they had a really difficult life. Most of these people have had a really difficult life or done things that were not great. And when they cross over, they aren't able to fully cross over. So it may be that they take that negative energy with them, and so that's what they connect with. We manifest, like attracts like. So if they cross over and they are like, I'm fearful that I haven't been a good enough person to go to the light, then they're going to be a stuck soul. They're not going to travel to the light. Or if they cross over and karmically they didn't, in this life, they didn't have a place where they felt remorse or recognize the damage that they did to the planet or to other people, that they might, until they kind of get a little bit of that on the other side, they can be stuck in a hellish spot. I don't really use the word eternity. I can't wrap my head around that word, so that I don't ever see anybody in eternity. And Jude uses that word. She has seen people where she said that she felt like she was in hell for eternity for a while.
Right.
So this is kind of the difference between she and I. I'm like, I just don't do the hell thing. And she's
Yeah.
like, I was there for eternity.
You can say, I haven't been there, so
not interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said she has been in dimensions that seem like hellish.
Yeah.
And what it seemed to be like eternity, but
Yeah.
I
This
guess
is her singing in the background.
Is that her singing right
That's
now?
her singing right now. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I didn't know she was going to put a little show in between.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay,
Yeah, but-
great, fantastic.
So, Chris, I just wanted to say that I think that creativity is so important. Creativity is taking an intimate piece of yourself, and just like you said, telling people you're psychic. It's a vulnerable thing. It's taking an intimate piece of yourself and putting it out in the world. And for you, you're putting it out in a way that people can judge that. But it's also it has so much healing to it. I can go to a museum and see a painting and just feel my energy field shift, or I can feel it in a specific chakra, and I think, and I know it must be hard, being a sensitive person and being in the limelight and being seen like that, but what you do is so important. And you said you don't consider yourself a healer, a communicator, but like you said, I just thought that was genius, that there is healing within the communication. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Yeah,
your
yeah.
reflections. You're an artist too, right?
I am.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about painting.
So I was always very creative as a kid, and did a lot of sketching, and I would win little contests and stuff. And then about the same time that I started going to psychic classes, which is interesting, I'm just realizing that, I went back to college and I just did nothing but take art classes.
Uh-huh.
And I found out that I could paint, you know,
Nice.
and they kind of moved me up in class and stuff. And I just loved it, loved it. And I do very realistic, like, you know, I will spend hours like on a skin tone and trying to blend things and stuff like that. And I always envied people that could be a little freer. I'm kind of an anal painter, but I love it. And for me, psychic, you know, psychic, I am, that's who I am. That's what I am. That's what I do. But my biggest joy in life and the thing that expands my heart more than anything is painting. And I do I'm a carpenter. I build things. I do concrete, you know, build things with concrete. And I love it. But when I paint with acrylics, to be honest, it's like a sexual experience for me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It just like opens up my flow.
Tell me about what the healing potential of making art and also observing art.
Okay.
On energetics side of things.
So I used to take one day a week when I would paint and not do anything else. And my husband would come home from work and he'd walk in, my husband that doesn't believe in this, and he'd say, "Did you paint today?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You look totally different. You look like younger. You look like," he could tell the days that I painted, you know, because it was my magic and I was in flow. And so for me, nothing comes close. Like, it's even hard to explain. And, you know, and when I retire, I'm just going to do art. That's it. You know, I'm just going to create and do art. And so again, when we are doing art, it kind of connects with all of our chakras. People see it primarily in the sacral chakra because it's emotions and you're putting your emotions out, and the throat chakra because the throat chakra is about self-expression. But if you go into the solar plexus, which is about self-value and a sense of self, it's there too. Like, you have to feel that what you have to say is important enough to put out on a canvas or out in the real world. So that's sacral chakra. And then the heart chakra is that balance between spiritual and the earthly and your sensibility and your intuition, and all that comes in when you're painting. So I believe that when you're not just painting, but when you're doing art, you're opening up the flow between your chakras and opening up each chakra. And we know when there's a block in our chakra or a block in flow, it can manifest into physical illness. It can manifest into psychological and mental health issues. So when you are allowing yourself to take the time to create, it's opening up that flow. And then you have to try to keep it, you know, because you can, you know, I have my painting day, yay, the next day I'm a, you know, raging bitch. But, you know, you have to kind of keep it going. But that's it. And then the thing with art is just kind of like when you can pick up on vibrational energy coming from somebody. I can look at one of your pieces of art and I can pick up on the vibrational energy from that. And I may look at it and be like, oh, that's cool. And then I might see something that like, oh, like, you know, it like slaps me in the face, or it steps me back, or it moves me in some way.
From the image or the original painting?
The image just as much.
The image can do something.
You know, I find originals really, you know, profound, and you know, I'd much rather own an original if I could. But I think that's because I'm an artist. I'm sure you're the same. But yeah, it's the image and what's been put out there. Like I have cards that I've just bought a piece of art on a card and put that card on my desk, and I look at it and it moves me. So that's that healing. If it's something that moves you in a positive way, that's going to help you be healthier physically, healthier energetically. It's going to help you be a better person.
Right.
You know. Yeah.
Well, the painting might have a code of what you're expressing. Sometimes very clear, sometimes not so much. But then there's the energy injected. Like, for example, if I'm spending months to do one painting, a lot of my vibration gets into it, and then I put it in a gallery and people are exchanging with it, and it seems like the painting gathers more forest feel. And then after years, the painting's like womp, 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 and then people kind of get lost in its vortex.
Yeah. It's just like anything, just like if you use white sage, you know, you set the intention of using this herb to clear energy. Well, this herb, that energy is already inherent in that herb because the indigenous people have used it for hundreds of years for that purpose. So it's the same, that interaction with the painting is getting sucked into that and coming across to people. So Yeah, totally. And it's such a trip. I had a gallery opening in San Francisco, and then I do a lot of, or used to do. It's my art's kind of on the back burner right now because of I'm too busy with my psychic work. But I did a lot of Arts Alive, where little art walks and stuff. And like I had one painting that I did, and I do a lot of humans, hands. I love doing hands, and I just really didn't like the skin tone. I felt like she was too pale, and I'm like, I'll put it up anyway. I'm going to sell it for cheap. And I had this man call me over and tell me how much he loved this painting, and all the things I hated about it are the things that he loved and was moved by it. And he bought it. And so I'm like, yeah, you can't, everything affects people differently.
Uh-huh. Do you feel there's spirits that could get attached to a painting? Because I have a friend, he's a big artist, I'm not going to name him because I don't want to out him, but a Mexican client bought the thing, and he's like, I think it came with an entity attached to it. It's like, whoa, like a painting can come with an actual disembodied entity that the artist injected into the piece.
Yeah. Totally. And I've had clients that have had say like, there's a demon coming through this painting or something like that. So if I'm looking at a painting and I'm moved by it, I'm energetically interacting with it. So that could actually be a portal, work as a portal for an entity to come through. So if I'm looking at a painting and I'm in a really bad place in my life and my vibration is low, so I'm in a vulnerable state, I'm not protected, that energy, if I think a demon could use my connection with that painting to come through. So it's not actually the physical painting, although it can kind of hang out there, but it's waiting for a reaction to kind of come through, because not everybody that sees that painting is probably going to, but maybe they aren't as sensitive, or if that makes sense.
Right. Do you feel disembodied entities can help artists and painters make a painting better, maybe influencing the paint, and the painting comes out extra and it has an extra resonance that's attractive, yet maybe a little bit tricky because they will feed off the humans that observe it? Is there such interaction?
So you mean kind of like channeling, like you're channeling some, like they're coming through you and
say
painting?
a disembodied entity is writing me, let's say. I don't think
so
that's
it's
happening.
affecting your...
Yeah. So the entity is affecting the painting, and a paint even better, and then it gets into the painting, and then it interacts with beings that look at the painting, and it feeds off the beings that enjoy the painting. Is that something possible?
I think everything is possible, first of all.
Okay.
Like I would, early on in my career, I would say, oh no, it doesn't work that way, it's not possible. And I've been proved wrong and changed my mind a million times. Anything's possible. There are no rules when it comes to spirituality.
Yeah. God is infinite and limitless.
Yeah.
Well,
so that could totally happen. And I have one client that's a sunshine little fairy person, but she paints the darkest, heaviest, scariest, kind of like eek paintings. And that's just, it's either part of her that comes through, or she channels something, or something takes over, or
I've seen that too. Personally, my intention when I paint paintings is to inject love and consciousness and positive portals. My murals are a quicker blast. It takes a day or two, but I imagine I'm opening these big portals for the beings that I'm painting to come through, at least vibrationally. And then when people...
And then they're healing people.
Yeah. It's just opening these alien wormholes of my happy planet, whatever that may be. I don't remember it, but apparently I'm painting it. So, and bringing more love into the planet. That's my intention with my murals that I'm dropping all over the place.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, since you get to see ghosts so easily, you understand that life is eternal and it doesn't end with this one life that we're living right now. Does that remove the fear of death, or do you still have an attachment to your current embodiment?
I don't have a fear of death, but I don't want to die because I love this world. Like, it makes me emotional. I love my life. I love the environment. And I feel like I'm 62. I just turned 62, and I'm like, why did I wait this long to have this appreciation? Because I feel like when you're younger, you're trying to get your life going, and you're figuring out, where am I going to live? What am I going to do? And then when you're a little bit older and you're settled, you're like, oh my God, like, look around me. Like, how blessed am I to be here? So, sorry.
No, it's over. Be as expressive
and then
as
being
you
around
want.
this beauty, here too. So it's not a fear of death. It's kind of like, I'm not ready to die, and I'm going to miss it.
Well, you're still young. 60s is
thank
still
you.
young.
Thank you.
40s is still young, etc. Like you just
Yeah.
gotta go out and kick life's ass as you are doing.
Thank you.
Do you have goals in your life you'd like to achieve, or you just continue with the work you're doing already?
You know, it's interesting being at this age because I feel like I'm 30, you know, and I look in the mirror and I'm like, fuck, you know, kind of thing. I have gotten to a point where I'm kind of letting go of goals. I'm trying to just do what feels good. And instead, I'm manifesting more generally. Like, I'm manifesting meeting interesting people and having interesting conversations and doing amazing art and seeing art and experiencing nature in really unique ways. And, you know, I'm manifesting more of a general on what I would like my life to look like. And I'm letting go of being so specific and particular and, you know, like working in the future. Because I used to be like very like, well, I'll do this and then I'll reach this point, and then when I'm here now I'm going to do this. Like checkpoints where now it's like, I just want to enjoy it and kind of be part of it. And, you know, I wish I would have had this when I was 30. Maybe that wasn't the right time for me. But now there's just kind of this ease of life. And maybe this is part of, you know, getting older too. You know, as we hit different places, different milestones, you know, we tend to shift and not take things for granted and realize our time is limited and all of that stuff. So I don't really have goals other than to kind of enjoy this and not take anything for granted.
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
seems like you're enjoying. It seems like you're
Oh, I love it.
blessed.
I love it.
You live in a beautiful place. You got a purposeful, beautiful mission in life, helping
Chris.
people with great friends. Seems like the here and now is perfect.
It's great.
So
Yeah.
who cares where you're at in your 30s, you know? Like, I'm sure that's just exactly where you had to be too, right?
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of this lovely conversation. Thank you so much once
thank
again. Would you have some final words of wisdom for anybody looking at this interview?
Get to know yourself. Like, really take the time to just be with yourself and get to know yourself and ask yourself questions and self-care. And because the more you like and love yourself and accept yourself, it doesn't mean you have to be perfect, you know, but the more you accept yourself and accept, you know, what you've done on your journey and have compassion for the mistakes you made and the, you know, when you beat yourself up, that's going to make you a better person. That's going to make your light brighter. And then you're going to be a better, you know, more compassionate and able to help others. And you're just going to be in that light, you know. And, you know, we just underestimate, like, compliment. I compliment people all the time. And my kids compliment people all the time because they learned it from me, you know. And I've had other people like, geez, you compliment everybody. But, you know, that could be the only nice thing that person hears all day long. And so they might go home and be nicer to their kid because of it. And then their kid might heal himself of some, you know, anxiety he has or something. So just little acts of kindness, but you have to, like, feel it in your heart for yourself first, and then share that and expand it out.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
thank you so much,
You're
Patty.
welcome. This was so fun.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it's
Chris.
awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Please make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all those absolutely boring things that you don't want to do, but you love us so much and you love the show so much that you're actually going to do it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Blessings! Woo!
Yay! That was so fun!
Yeah. Next episode, Blake Foster.
And so I feel like my eyes just changed in how I see everything. Not only during the trips, but even afterwards, I can still look at everything differently. And I think it's just a fine tuning of my consciousness. Being able to see nature in these ways, and then pull out pieces of what I saw in my inner space and the outer space, and kind of combine them together on the canvas and try to show that to the viewer.
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks, and see you next episode. Peace.